song that I always have my daughter sing when she travels with me. It's called From a Distance. And it's like how much different the world looks and things look when you can get your ego and get yourself out of what it is that you are doing and begin to move back, almost in your meditation. So you begin to look down on what it is that you're doing and what your life is rather than looking at it from the inside out. You know what I mean? And in the Tao, it teaches us that, built into all, good fortune is misfortune, and built into all misfortune is good fortune. And that's just the way of things, that in the material world, there's nothing that is a straight line. Everything is crooked. Everything is peaks and valleys, ups and downs. And what we're in now, economically, perhaps in your industry, is a very natural thing. And rather than observing it from a place of worry and anxiety and stress and fear, you begin to observe it and notice it from a place of contentment and being totally, completely at peace with it. And then as you observe from that position, you begin to ask yourself, is this where I belong? Is this the thing I want to continue to do? If the automotive industry or you supply the automotive industry, if this is a business that is shifting, that is changing, because every business shifts. I just saw a statistic the other day that said that the top 10 jobs in 2010 did not exist in 2004. So that next year, the top 10 jobs, in-demand jobs, didn't even exist 5 years ago. And most of the jobs that people are in now didn't exist 20 years ago. All of this is, everything is in a constant state of change and flux. And you can get peaceful with that and then step outside of it and begin to see yourself perhaps instead of thinking of yourself as employed by a company that provides you with a job which gives you benefits and allows you to pay your mortgage and which is one way of thinking and looking at things. If it were me, I would stop looking at my world that way. I wouldn't process it that way at all. In fact, I did exactly the same thing back in the 1970s when I was employed as a professor with a full-time job and a guaranteed tenure job for the rest of my life. But I began to look at it from a different perspective of how much in control am I? Do I want to always be here in the same school, in the same position, doing the same things as a professor? And I began to look outside of the box and do things a little bit differently. And within you, there is something that calls you that probably has absolutely nothing to do with the automotive industry and the job that you're in and so on. But you probably are so conditioned to habitually think the way that you do that getting outside of that way of looking at it is almost impossible. And seeing that, okay, this automotive industry in the United States is a dinosaur in many ways. I'm not saying that from a good or a bad perspective. I'm just saying that's just the way it is. I mean, it's an industry that is shifting and that is changing, and and I'm going to, instead of staying where I am and wishing that it wasn't happening, I'm going to go with that change, and I'm going to observe it all from a place of contentment. And then I'm going to trust my inner calling. Inside each and every one of us, there is something I call it the callings of the soul, and it has nothing to do with your body and your age and where you live and you're a man or anything like that. It has to do with something amorphous, something formless, something that you can't get your hands around. And that calling generally is what you're here for, but you just get afraid. What is that? What strikes you about that or does anything? You know about managerial things. You know statistical. You know what it takes to help people to become better at what it is that they do. Declare yourself an expert at that. Write your own guide for that. Start giving talks about that. And watch if you don't turn that into a career. That's what I've done my whole life, rather than saying, I have to work a certain way because I have, people just think and live by habits their entire life. And as Wordsworth, the famous English poet, said, habits rule the unreflecting herd. The unreflecting herd. Don't be a part of the unreflecting herd who just can only see things as jobs are disappearing and the economy is going terrible and so on. That doesn't have to happen for you. It doesn't have to happen for anyone, as long as you can learn how to change the way you look at things. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. They really do.
Almost all of the things that we call, quote, suffering are really just lessons that we're going through in the moment. And while we're going through them, we have a choice. We can do something with them. We can say, all right, this is, if I continue along this particular pattern, it's going to lead me into a higher place or into a better place. Or if I think about it in a different way, it's going to keep me, in a place of misery, unhappiness, sickness, and so on. And almost all of that suffering stuff, suffering kind of thinking is our inability to project ourselves out into the future, think about how I would like this outcome to come, and then begin to get the feeling state of that, and to stay with that, and you can watch and make the suffering go away. And in this moment, you can either take this moment, fill it with all of the stuff that you're analyzing about all the things that happened to you in the past, or you can use this moment to project into the future and to begin to work from that future moment backwards to now and start to feel good about what it is that you would like to see. Even if it's like a very serious disease or whatever it is, you have a much better chance of transcending it if you get past the suffering thinking and the analyzing and the tearing it apart and bring the whole thing together instead of tearing it apart.